Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the first of 3 special call meetings regarding the millage rate for the Newton County School System. The time is 6 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Superintendent Roundtree.
Good evening, Madam Chair, other members of the Board of Education, members of the public. We thank you for coming to join us this evening. We, as the School Board Chair has said, we are here this evening to present information as we look to set the millage rate for FY 2024. So at this time, I am going to turn matters over to our Executive Financial Manager, Ms. Erica Robinson.
And before Ms. Robinson starts, I would like to note that we do have a quorum. It is the summertime, and so Mr. Bailey and Mrs. Coggin could not be with us. But we do have a quorum of 3.
Good evening. So this evening I'm going to share a brief presentation regarding our millage rate for fiscal year 24. And I'm not sure if someone could help me, but I want to get that the top part that's on the screen off. If Napoleon, maybe if you could come and help me with that, please. As he's coming to help with that, so we will start the presentation off by looking at the history of the M&O Tax Digest. And so we have it going, starting with fiscal year 2009. Thank you. And we have it going all the way through fiscal year 24. So you can see here on this slide that the digest began decreasing around the time that we saw the recession start to impact everyone. And so that was around fiscal year 2010. And so from there until about 2014, we were experiencing decreases in the digest. The digest did begin to increase starting in fiscal year 2015 and up and through the current year that we are in, that actually just started on July 1st. And so for those of you that can't see the bottom of that screen, for fiscal year 24, the digest is $5.2 billion. And so at our current millage rate of 16.788, that would generate a gross tax of $88.9 million. And that far right column is the change from fiscal year 2009. And so you can see in the red when we were experiencing the impacts of the recession, we were losing revenue there in those years. And then we began to recover around about fiscal year 2020 when the numbers began to turn black. And so for fiscal year 24, if we leave the millage rate at 16.788, the difference from 2009 would be $35.1 million. And that's a gross tax. So here is the same information. There is just 2 additional columns here. We do have to pay a collection fee to the Tax Commissioner's Office of 2.5%. So that is factored into this chart here. So the previous chart was just the gross amount. This chart shows the net amount. So in fiscal year '24, the net tax that will be generated if the millage rate were to remain at 16.788 would be about $86.7 million. So these are the millage rate scenarios that we have reviewed for fiscal year '24 once we receive the digest. So the very first row there, fiscal year '22-23, that is the digest amount for fiscal year '23 that just ended on June 30th. And so at $4.2 billion, the millage rate was 16.788. So that generated a gross tax of $70.8 million. And then there again, you see the collection fee for a net, and then a net tax of just over 69 million. So the remaining rows are millage rates, various millage rates that we have reviewed to determine and come up with a recommendation for fiscal year '24. And so the very first row there that says 23-24, that is the first rate there is 16.788, which is our current rate. And at that rate, it would generate a net tax of $86.7 million. And then as you go down the slide, you can see the various rates there that we have considered, starting with 16.500, and that would generate a net tax of $85.2 million. And then on the far right column there, change from 2023. So that is the increase from what was generated in fiscal year '23. That would be the increase from '23 to '24. So if it was 16.5, the increase would be about 16.1 million. And as we move down the chart, we see a millage rate of 16, and that would generate a net tax of $82.6 million, followed by a millage rate of 15.850, which would generate net taxes of $81.8 million, and then 15.788, that would generate a net tax of 81.5, and then a millage rate of 15.500 would generate a net tax of just over 80 million. A flat 15 would generate a net tax of 77.4, and then finally the rollback rate of 14.040 would generate a net tax of 72.5 million. And so as we begin to look at these numbers, we do know that we have to consider the impact of the digest on our local and our state revenue. And then we also have to think about some other budget considerations that we know are going to be occurring that we'll have to be prepared for. And so first, I want to just talk about the impact of the tax digest on the state and local revenue. So there are two pieces of state revenue that are affected by the tax digest, and it's our local fair share and our equalization. And so our local fair share is required contribution from local funds to support quality basic education, which is also known as QBE. And the amount is deducted from our total QBE earnings. So as you can see, this excerpt here is from our budget documents that you received in the spring. The revenue budget, we had a total QBE earnings of $131 million. And then we had to deduct from that the local fair share, which was $18.9 million. And so our local fair share is always equal to 5 meals. There is a lag in the calculation for the state, so it's not 5 meals of this year's digest, it's 5 years of, I think it's the 21 digest. So there's a lag there. And then all districts do have to contribute the 5 meals. For our equalization, the equalization is created to ensure that all districts can provide basic education. And it is provided to districts with lower tax digest and a lower ability to generate local funding. So During the times of the recession, we received a large amount of equalization, as did other districts as well, because our digest was decreasing. The formula is very complex. There are a lot of moving parts to it, but it is based on the tax digest and it's based on the millage rate, which may cause some districts to be ineligible. And so to kind of put all those words into numbers, here we have the fiscal year, we have the tax digest, we have the millage rate, we have the local fair share and equalization. So what we can see from these numbers is that as our tax digest increases, so will our local fair share, and then our equalization will decrease. So for instance, you can see in fiscal year 21, the tax digest was just over $3 billion, and the local fair share was 14.6. In 2022, the tax digest went up, as did the local fair share, and the equalization went down, and so on and so forth. There is an anomaly for fiscal year 24 where the equalization did increase slightly by about 300,000, but that is typically not what happens. The last line there, 24-25, that is an estimate that's based on the 22 tax digest for local fair share. So we are anticipating an increase there for fiscal year 25. The increase in the local fair share that we experienced this year in fiscal year 24 is 2.48 million, which is equivalent to about 4.68 meals. The estimated increase in fiscal year 25 is going to be 4.43 million, which is equivalent to 0.836 meals. And so because the digest is also increasing, we are anticipating that the equalization will decrease as well. Some other budget considerations that we have to consider when we're thinking about and recommending a millage rate for fiscal year 24. We talked about this extensively in our budget conversations about the health insurance increase for the employer portion of the health insurance for classified staff. That is something that was kind of sprung on us, and so we're going to have to pay for this. Over the next 3 years, they're going to phase it in, but it will have to be covered through local funding. We do not receive any state funding for that. We know that in fiscal year 25, the TRS contribution rate, the employer TRS contribution rate, is going to increase from 19.98% to 20.78%. We have also the implementation of the school safety initiative in fiscal year 24. That is something that will have to be locally funded as we, continue to do that throughout the years. We also know that the ESSER 3 funding will sunset in September of 2024. So the initiatives that are funded right now with ESSER funding, there will have to be a determination made as to whether or not we will continue with those initiatives after the funding expires. So here are listed some of the things that are covered right now with ESSER. They're in alphabetical order, so they're not in order by priority or preference. These are things that we will have to consider in next year's budget, and it will have to be funded locally. And then last on the slide is the senior citizen property tax exemption that is going to be coming up for a vote by the citizens of the county. And so if that passes, that is also going to impact our revenue. And so now we'll just take a look at some comparison data so that we can just see how we compare to other districts. This first slide is the per pupil expenditures. This is all expenditures, so your state, federal, and local expenditures. These are districts that are similar to us in student count or close to us geographically. And so Newton County spent $220 million in fiscal year '22, and that led to a per pupil expenditure of $12,024. And that was at a millage rate of 18.288. So that put us third from the bottom in comparison with the districts that are here. This slide shows the local per pupil revenue. So for fiscal year '22, Newton County had a local per pupil revenue of $3,997. And so the counties on the left are the same counties that were on the previous slide, those that are similar to us in size or similar to or close to us geographically. The counties on the right are additional counties that we have looked at. And in this, on the right-hand side, we are third from the bottom, again at $3,997 per pupil for local revenue. And this is just a look at the local revenue per pupil for Newton County alone from fiscal year 2000 through to 2022. And the average for those years is $2,596. So here I have a sample home calculation with the millage rates that we looked at earlier. This is with an average home value of $300,000. This average home value was provided by the tax assessor's office. The calculation goes as follows. There's a value at 40%, and then we take out the homestead exemption to come to a total taxable value. And so the millage rates you can see in red, as we talked about earlier, all of those options. And so the total taxes, the total school taxes, I should say, are there. So if the millage rate were to remain at 16.788, the total school taxes would be $1,947. Now, the way the rest of the slide works is, so if we move to 16.5, the total school taxes paid will be $1,914, which is a decrease of $33 from the millage rate of 16.788. And so if you continue down the slide at 16, the total taxes paid will be $1,856, which is a decrease of $91 from the millage rate of 16.788. And then at 15.850, the total taxes will be $1,839 for a difference of $109. At 15.788, the total taxes will be $1,831 for a difference of $116. At 15.5, the total school taxes will be $1,798 for a difference of $149. And then at 15, the total taxes will be $1,740 for a difference of $207. And then finally at 14.040, the total taxes would be $1,629 for a difference of $319. The next slide is the same calculation. However, this is for a non-homestead home. So you can see there the homestead exemption is 0. But the slide works the same as far as the calculation goes. And so at 16.788, the total school taxes will be $1,847. And then at 16.5, it will be $1,815 for a difference of $32. At 16, it will be $1,760 for a difference of $87. At 15.850, it will be $1,744 for a difference of $103. And then at 15.788, the total school taxes will be $1,737 for a difference of $110. At 15.5, the total school taxes will be $1,705 for a difference of $142. And then at 15, the total school taxes will be $1,650 for a difference of $197. And lastly, at 14.040, the total school taxes will be $1,544 for a difference of $302. And so coming to an end here, we have the total millage rates for 2022 compared to other school systems. And so Newton had a total millage rate of 16.788 for fiscal year 23, which is calendar year 22. And so we were fourth from the bottom as far as when we rank in total. You can see that some counties have a bond millage rate. We do not have a bond millage rate. And so that is because we pay our bond debt with our SPLOST dollars. So right now, we are at 16.788, but we have considered all of the factors in determining a recommendation for fiscal year 24, given what we know about the local fair share and equalization, and also about what we know is upcoming in the budget for fiscal year 24 and 25. We have come to a recommendation of 16 for fiscal year 24. So this last slide here gives you a look at the millage rate history since 1999. So right now we're at 16.788, which is the lowest that it has been in almost a quarter of a century. And then you can see that on this slide, we did decrease our millage rate, our debt service, or our bond millage rate to 0 starting in 2015, and it has remained there. We have been decreasing our millage rate since 2019 to try to lower the burden of the taxpayer, but also as well keep in mind the needs of the school district. So that concludes my presentation. And at this time, if there are any questions from the board members, we can take those.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Board members, I'll open the floor for any questions or comments. I do want to add the slide that you had, Ms. Robinson, that talked about, I just want to comment to give a little bit more feedback on the slide that you had, the expenditures on of those things. Just, I know you had school safety on there. What a lot of people do not understand is there is not a line item in the state budget given to school systems for school safety at all. School safety has to be funded completely by the school system. That means when you're talking about SROs in schools, when you're talking about anything, any kind of security systems, camera systems, adding more officers, any of that has to be fully funded by the school system, and that's every school system in the state of Georgia. And school systems, along with GSBA and their lobbyists, have lobbied to legislators to create a line item in the budget where the state would pay for that. So that is the reason why a lot of school systems in rural Georgia, South Georgia, do not have any type of protection for students or staff there. So I just want to help people understand that, because a lot of people are not aware of that. That is something that is fully funded. So it has to be something that your board members feel that is important. And when we look at Maslow hierarchy of needs, if a student does not feel safe, if teachers do not feel safe, they do not learn.
Yes.
And you can't put a price on safety. That is a non-negotiable, especially in 2023, when you have active shooters. You never know when it's going to happen, when you have threats. So I just want to remind the community of that part that a lot of people are not aware of, that has to be fully funded.
Yeah, and I'll echo, just agreeing with you too, and just saying to anyone who's watching, contact your local legislator. Like, let them know that it hurts the school board, it hurts the taxpayers when the local tax digest has to pick up a basic need like security in schools. And really, you know, we're in a situation where we can afford to do some things this year to help with security, where some school systems might not be able to do that. Some more unfortunate situations. So contact your representatives and let them know, man, from the Gold Dome, we need some funds to help with school safety. If it's important, let's fund it.
And also, I know you had the health benefits on there as well. That was a surprise to everybody. So I want to remind people of that. Just like in your regular job, you're getting surprised every year about how much more you have to pay in health costs. School systems are getting surprised every year about how much more they got to contribute in health costs for their employees. So just want to help people to understand those are basic needs that we have to fund out of the general budget.
Is it possible to go back to the slide that indicated the programs that will be impacted when Essex sunsets in September? So hopefully it will give the public a better understanding. I'm sorry.
Yes, so here we have the list here of things that are funded with our ESSER 3 funds. Those funds are set to expire in September of 2024. Has not been any word or any mention of any extension, so we are operating as if it is going to expire in 2024. And so some of the initiatives that we have included right now in our ESSER 3 funding that if we wish to continue those initiatives would have to be funded elsewhere. We have our APEX clinicians, we have our MTSS specialists, we have additional paraprofessionals, we have professional learning communities, we have a handful of school nurses that are in the ESSER 3 funding, and then we have our virtual learning academy that is also in the ESSER 3 funding. So all of those things would have to be funded locally if we determine that we would like to continue with those initiatives.
And Ms. Robinson, can I add to that APEX clinicians to define that right quick? Because a lot of people don't know what APEX clinicians are. So those are your licensed professional clinicians or your licensed clinical social workers. We have an MOU with Viewpoint Health. The governor does pay into putting APEX clinicians, but we did not have enough. So that money, those monies were put in to fund other APEX clinicians to meet that student ratio need. So when you talk about mental health services, how everybody is quick to post on social media, our kids need mental health services, our kids need help, that's what the APEX clinician is. School counselors do not do the work of mental health counseling. You need a licensed professional clinician to do that work.
Is it possible to identify the amount of each one of those categories? I just think it's beneficial to show the public what increases that we'll experience and a brief explanation of what those programs consist of and what they're doing for the district.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I'd love to see those numbers beside it. We've already heard from our staff that the MTSS specialists, so help me out, multi-tier support.
System of support specialists.
All right. Like our school building leaders, our administrators, have said, if you take those away from us, we're going to come after you.
Exactly.
So they've already said that they've seen the benefit of those, the MTSS specialists. So we know we need to, and that's whatever, how many 20-something positions are?
This year will be fully staffed, so each school will have its own. We only had one, the Career Academy was the only one that did not have one, and so they're coming on this year. So all 23 schools and/or programs will have a person designated to do that work in the building.
And that's the cost you're talking about. If we were to see 23
Yeah.
times whatever that salary is,
Salary plus benefits.
you're right, that's a big number there.
Yeah.
I just think it's beneficial for the public to let them know. and
Yes,
that we're
I'll
not.
add it for the
I'm-
I'll add it for the presentation, for the second presentation.
Thank you so much.
That'd be great. Could I ask one more slide that could help? Because all this is, all right, this is our job, is to make sure that the school's fully funded. So I understand that, and the kids come first, and we need to make sure that that's fully funded. I'll say that again. Now, all of our numbers are basically about us, right, about Newton County School System, which is what it should be. But there's one slide that you had that showed the millage rate for a home that was $300,000, and, you know, everything just showed minuses after that. So if your home is, 300,000.
Let's go back.
Or go back one. If it's at the red rate here all the way across, it's, you know, your total school taxes are $1,947. But that, the slide I would like to see, if it's possible, is that same one, but from last year, when that home was only worth $240,000. Because we know that we're not raising the taxes. The property assessments are what causes the taxes to go up. I'll say that again. The property values are what causes the taxes to go up, not this board. What we're trying to do is talk about lowering that rate in which the assessments are measured against to help lower the taxes. So the conversation we're having is about helping to lower it. We're not increasing anything. But if we could see from last year, if a home increased in $60,000 over a year, everybody's tax bill is going up. I would love to see what that difference is from last year to this year, because
Okay.
it could possibly help us at least think through the lens of the taxpayer, you know, for a second, instead of just, you know, the.
Well, I think it's moving forward when we express the fact that we need a variety of programs to excel and make sure our students are on the right track, and we'll get the best of the best that we can provide from the school district. And we can't sit on our arms and legs and not seek out improvements, new programs coming along. And I think we've done an excellent job identifying these programs, and we can delineate what we intend for them to do for our students. I think our parents and the public will be much more appreciative of what we're trying to do. We're not just sitting here spending tax dollars. Yes, we're spending them, but here's what we want to get for it. And hopefully, this is what's going to be the end result. Your students are going to perform better. End results, one I've like to mention is our funding that we get when our students graduate from our high schools and they go into college. We had a tremendous year this year. That's the end result of our kids now can go where they want to go, not go where they can from the results that we're showing or trying to show from the added expense out of those half dozen, 8 or 10 items. And I'll be happy to, when you show that, that would be great.
I agree with both of those. I agree with Ms. Robinson, you're going to provide additional the statement listing the funds of the Apex, the MTSS, and then what Trey said as well. Reason being is, just to be honest with you, the community always says, and it does, the community says, we need to get our kids mental health services. What is the school system doing about mental health services?
School safety, school safety, school safety.
We're paying for it. We need school safety. We need more officers. What is the school system doing about that? We're paying for everything the community is asking for. Learning loss. What are y'all doing about learning loss? The kids were out of school. That's the MTSS specialist to identify those learning loss and help those students to get to where they're supposed to be. We're doing every single thing they ask, but then we get criticized because the rates are high. But the rates aren't high because of us. Your housing value went up. We're trying our best to decrease the rate. It's been the lowest it's been, you said, in over half a century. We saw that on the slide. So it's like everything they ask for, we do, but then at the end of the day, somehow it comes back to bite us.
Yeah, and lower my taxes.
But we're doing everything you asked for.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah. Thank you for the presentation, by the way. That's a lot of data and
You're
information.
welcome.
I know it takes a lot to put that together.
Okay, any other questions, comments, or feedback from the board? Okay, we'll just have those updated slides for next week.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yeah, and I want to highlight, I'll say it right quick, Mr. Roundtree. I did hear Ms. Robinson say that we are, the recommendation will be, as of now, for 16.0,
Yes.
which will be another decrease.
Yes.
Okay. And then you also had it noted on there about the senior citizens, that the ball is in their court or the community court for that vote in November.
Yes.
Okay. And that will cause, if that's a yes, I want to highlight that too, just for next year. If that's a yes, that's another decrease on our behalf, so we got to find funding again for those programs that the community want. Okay. All right, any other comments or feedback? Having none, other matters of interest? Public participation, do we have any public participation? All right, may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So move.
Second.
Been moved and properly second, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, 6:35 PM. Thank you.